Hey everyone, Brooke here again, and I'm back with another software update or version release for 047 of Terminus. Now, I didn't do a video on 4.6 because there wasn't a lot, at least in the UI, to highlight, but with 4.7 things are a little different, so I want to take some time to walk you through it. So first off, the thing I want to talk about is Raspberry Pi support. So in the documentation here in the table of contents under usage, you'll see that there's new documentation for Raspberry Pi. So let's take a look at this really quick. So when you go into the documentation here, you'll notice that I've tested on Raspberry Pi 5 and Pi 0. Actually, I have the devices here and we'll show them off in just a moment. But here's my Raspberry Pi 5. I'm running Terminus on there. And then also I have a Raspberry Pi 0 2W. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a moment too. Now the cool thing about this is it uses a project that I developed that's outside of the scope of Terminus. But it's dedicated to shell scripts to help you set up your Raspberry Pi really fast, just using pure bash. So that project is right here, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But before we get to that, in the Pi project, it supports the ability to use your XDG configuration to add in as many services as you want. So in this case, I'm demonstrating Terminus, but you could have your Pi-hole, you could have other services that you want. You could use this Raspberry Pi project to set all those up, flash your micro SSD, and then set up the operating system and all of the services, and then immediately plug that into your Pi device, spin up the whole thing, and have everything up and running. Pretty cool. But again, it's outside the scope of Terminus, so I'm just mentioning this as a side project in case it's of interest and you want to use this. If you have a different workflow, totally cool, but just letting you know it's there. So when you do that and you make a service like this, it's just bash. So just set up your criteria for code check and code quality, and then you clone Terminus, change directory into Terminus, and then set up Docker. And by the way, the Pi project that I'm talking about here, it has the Docker service built up for you. So you don't even have to worry about that. When you use this, it'll spin up Docker for you, and then it'll spin up Terminus for you, and it's all taken care of. And again, you can customize this as much as you want. You don't have to use the defaults. You can override. It's totally flexible. And then finally, when you have it spin up, then you can just SSH into your Pi device, change directory to the Terminus folder, and then just spin up Docker Compose. If you don't even want to do these manual steps, especially spinning up Docker Compose, you could actually add it to this setup script as part of the service, and then just have it spin up in the background. Totally up to you. But once you have that up and running, that means then that you can actually log into your Terminus instance running on those devices, those Pi devices. So in this case, I'm showing off the 0 here. So here's the 0 device again. It's this guy right here. And here's the web UI running Terminus. I just basically set it up as 0.local on my network. And then I'll log in. So when I log in, there'll be a little bit of a delay. And the reason is because this device is very low powered. It has 1 gigahertz processing speed and 512 megabytes of RAM. So it's really, really limited. In fact, actually, like the models and some of the background stuff isn't syncing properly. It's some stuff I need to work on, but I just wanted to kind of highlight that, hey, this stuff is here. You can play around with it. You can run it on your Pi. You can see that Terminus is running. It's just running out of memory on some of the services, so it's got limited capability. But just know that you can do that. The other thing I want to show off is the Raspberry Pi 5. So that's this guy here. I'm just running the Raspberry Pi 5 here. And I've spun it up with the Pi project here with Terminus as a service. And when you log into here, you'll see that it's a little bit more, it's a little snappier. So when I log in, you can browse around. If you go to the models, all the background jobs, syncing information, all the models are coming down, so you have everything. You can build extensions. You can play with the designer. You can go to the dashboard. You can set up new devices. You can have multiple devices connected. It's really quite snappy. Pretty nice. So if you want basically not worrying about memory and processor speed, and you want something that's small and compact, the Pi 5 is actually a really good device to start with. So anyway, that's the Raspberry Pi stuff. Just know that it's here in the documentation if you need it, and then you've got this project, the Pi project, to help you spin up if you just want to use pure bash. Totally up to you though. moving on then, the next thing I want to talk about is in the dashboard here, I've added tooling just to make it easier for you to flash your device and customize your device, basically the firmware for your device. So with the flash tool, if you go there, that's our flash assistant. This allows you to reflash the device, select the different devices that you're using, and be able to flash and update your firmware for your device. We also have the tailor tool. So the tailor tool allows you to upload a custom splash image and then a loader image. And this gives you the ability to totally rebrand your terminal device so that it has your own look and feel instead of our corporate logo and so forth. So again, totally up to you, but this is available if you need it. It's right here in the dashboard. If you go to the firmware section and you look at the popover documentation, you'll find it here, both those links to those tools there as well. The other thing I want to talk about is extensions, especially custom fields. So I have a little test extension here, just me playing around with things locally. And when you add custom fields, something that's part of our plugin ecosystem on Terminal Core, this is supported now too. So you can add in custom fields here, and then those custom fields can be plucked out and used in your liquid templates. So in the documentation here, I show this, like if you need access to all the fields, you can do that. You can iterate through that as a loop. Here I'm showing off like if you want to get the first field and then you want to pluck out the name key of that field, you can do that. If you straight up just want to get the values, you can do that too by doing values and then whatever the name is. So like in this case, the name key, you could just do values.name and that would give you the value for the name key in your custom fields. So there's a bunch of documentation here. There's additional help center documentation on how this works. And even down below, I show this off a little bit where I'm getting the stop ID of the custom field, and then I'm getting the name. And I don't have to iterate through the fields either. I could just use extension values.name, and that'd be equivalent to what this is doing. But you've got multiple ways to do this now. So that's in this release for custom fields. And where this really comes into play more importantly is when in the gallery here, when you start to do imports, this isn't working yet, but it's still working on getting this feature rolled out. You can't do the import yet. But when this is made possible, that means any of the custom fields and any of these community supported plugins, they'll be imported as fields within the extension. So just know that that's coming. And then finally, the last thing I want to wrap up with is talking about firmware. Talking about the Screens API. So in the Screens API, if we go down here just a little bit in the documentation, in the API, if you click on the API documentation and you go to the Screens, you'll notice that the ability to patch all the different formats is supported now. So what I'm saying is in the past, the patch request only supported HTML content, and you've been able to do that for quite some time. But you weren't able to actually deal with preprocessed, unprocessed, or base64 encoded data. And now that is fully supported. And what that means is it brings up to speed with the post request. So now when you create a screen through the API and you create one of these like the boot extensions quote here, and you want to update it, now you can patch it using HTML content and update the screen, preprocessed, unprocessed, or data URIs. It all works the same way as when you first created the screen. And what's nice about this is when you have it in your playlist then, and you've got different screens here, you can update those and it doesn't affect your playlist. You don't have to delete it and recreate it and so forth. You just patch it and you're good to go. So that is the Screens API. So that's kind of the updates for Terminus in a nutshell. I hope you like this release, and I'll see you in the next version.